Disabled teenager starves to death. Good evening. I'm Michelle Kingsfield.
And I'm Marcia Baumhart. Montgomery County investigators say a 14-year-old girl with cerebral palsy weighed just 28 pounds.
Jordan Burgess is live with how this happened and who is to blame. Jordan?
Those at the coroner's office tell me this is the worst case of its kind they've ever seen. But someone who works with disabled kids and adults says this happens more often than you would think. This house on Taylor Street where 14-year-old Michaela Norman wasted away to nearly nothing is now empty. But how something like that could go on here is still a mystery.
I've never seen this degree of wasting with a tube feeding in place that was supposedly being used and documented being used every day.
No one has been charged yet in Michaela's death. Investigators are still pinpointing who's to blame. The 14-year-old who had cerebral palsy died March 1st at Dayton Children's. She weighed 28 pounds.
That's essentially the weight of the skeleton.
2 months later, her death was ruled a homicide by the Montgomery County Coroner's Office.
What makes this case a homicide is this 14-year-old child is absolutely dependent on the adults that care for her. She cannot care for herself.
Neighbors say in just the last few days, Michaela's mother abandoned her home on Taylor Street, leaving behind her pets and much more.
I did notice a big dumpster out front the other day, a few days ago, that was full. It looked like the entire contents of the house had been placed in the dumpster.
What happened to Michaela is enough to leave you outraged, but officials say it's not as uncommon as we'd like to believe.
To some degree, you want to say you're shocked and certainly devastated by it. But the reality is we know these kinds of things happen all the time.
Dennis Grant with United Rehabilitation Services says that's why his organization offers things like parent support groups and in-home care. He only wishes somebody would have stepped in sooner to help Michaela.
Pay attention to your neighbors. You know, it's not like we want Big Brother looking over our shoulder, but I do think it's important that we acknowledge that some of these kids, they can't defend themselves, they can't speak out for themselves. Somebody has to do that for them.
And certainly a lot more to come from this case, and as we get more answers about what happened to Michaela, we'll be sure to let you know. Reporting live, Jordan Burgess, 2 News on your side.